been a while since we heard from convicted murderer Scott Peterson. Now it seems he's back with a message. Apparently he wants to say thank you. Canadian anti-death penalty organization is hosting a web page for Peterson featuring a personal letter straight from death row. In it, Peterson thanks his supporters for writing to him in prison, even if he's not able to write back. Quote, "At mail call, I'm encouraged by and enjoy hearing from people. I wish I could respond to and express my gratitude and continue to correspond. However, people having sold my notes and sometimes fabricating content preclude me from doing so. It's an irritating, unfortunate situation. I'm tremendously appreciative of your kindness. It has such a wonderful positive effect upon our family." The group hosting the website says Peterson plans to publish similar public messages a few times a year. Joining me now is Dave Parkinson from the Canadian Coalition Against the Death Penalty. They're running the Peterson webpage, and Vernell Crittenden, the San Quentin prison spokesperson who often fills us on what's happening at death row, where Peterson has recently been moved from an adjustment center to an individual cell. All right, thank you both, to both of you, appreciate it. Mr. Parkinson, let me ask you this first of all. It seems Scott Peterson appears more worried about someone profiting from his words than he does about putting the word out.
Well, rightly so. I mean, since the
it's more important, you think, whether
began again.
You think it's more important whether people are profiting than whether he can supposedly defend his innocence?
Well, no, but certainly when people are selling his letters on eBay or murderabilia sites, trying to make a profit from it, and since this media fiasco began with us posting this on the internet, we've actually had some legitimate news organizations in the U.S., we won't mention, who've offered us money for a copy of the letter.
Okay. Now, I know your organization provides space for a lot of death row inmates, and you've pointed out that some have been released who the evidence turns out enough to allow them to be freed. But do you worry that championing Scott Peterson undermines your credibility in this sense, that a lot of these people had underfunded defenses? They weren't able to investigate. They didn't have proper legal defenses, and yet here, Scott Peterson had one of the most expensive lawyers in the country.
But certainly, as you're well aware, it's primarily a circumstantial case, if not purely a circumstantial case, with little or no forensic evidence, DNA, witnesses, what have you. In many of the instances where we had someone who was wrongfully convicted, almost 12 people now, who originally wrote us from death row, proclaiming their innocence, who have since been released and exonerated through DNA or other means. At least in those cases, they had a jailhouse snitch's testimony, they might have had some fabricated evidence, they might have had a wrong eyewitness statement, but the fact of the matter is they were much more guilty than a primarily circumstantial case where there's little or no physical evidence whatsoever.
You've done a lot of these cases. Don't give me the nonsense about circumstantial cases. I mean, the bottom line is circumstantial cases are the strongest cases out there. Eyewitnesses, jailhouse snitches are the type of testimony that lead to overturned verdicts because they're so unreliable.
In some instances they do. In other instances there have been many individuals who've been executed on primarily the same evidence that we've had people exonerated on. We're not taking the stance of guilt or innocence in Mr. Peterson's case. We're primarily allowing him a forum to do that on his own, and he has maintained his innocence since day one.
Yeah, I know, but you're also, by saying it's an entirely circumstantial case, and we have all these people who are released with this type of evidence.
But it is.
Well, it may be, but it may be, but circumstantial cases, as you know, I'm not saying that this is the strongest case I've ever seen, but circumstantial cases are the strongest types of cases.
Oh, in some instances they can be, but even Judge DeLucci, 3/4 through the trial, said if there is a conviction, it's an appellate lawyer's petri dish. Even he acknowledged the fact that there were so many issues that couldn't fully be substantiated, that it is an appellate lawyer's dream, and there are going to be issues brought up, and he is certain to get an appeal down the road if these issues are properly addressed in the courts.
He'll get an appeal.
But again, we're not talking about his guilt or innocence on the page. We're allowing him to do that, as we do for 500 other death row prisoners, primarily in the United States, but also in several other countries around the world.
All right, Vernell Crittenden, what's Peterson up to these days?
Well, good afternoon, Dan. And I just wanted to comment on one statement that was made, and that is here in the state of California, no inmate on death row has been released because of DNA testing. So I just thought I'd want to clarify that. And Scott Peterson is doing well on death row. I was up in death row today, just prior to coming to this broadcast, and he's taken down the picture off of his wall. He and Lacey at their wedding. He's now put another picture up, which is a picture of he and Lacey on vacation, sitting out on a beach. He seems to be in very good spirits. We've now have him moved over to the East Block, where we house the lion's share of the death row inmates. And we have actually began to identify inmates that are compatible with Scott Peterson, that he'll be spending the rest of his life with. I thought you might find interesting just a couple of them I wanted to share with you. One was a man named Ivan Gonzalez from San Diego, who came in 1995. He had sexually molested a 4-year-old multiple times, and at the point of death, 50% of her body was burned. He has another gentleman that he'll be with is Mike Martinez. Mike Martinez took a knife and a hammer to a woman and killed her, and then repeatedly
Now, Mr. Crittenden, is it not a serious
daughter.
breach of security to be releasing, for the public relations officer at San Quentin to be releasing such detailed information on Mr. Peterson's comings and goings within the prison facility? I understand it's one thing to advise the public how he's checked in, fingerprinted, and escorted to his cell. But getting into such detailed information as to who he's hanging out with in the prison, does that not compromise Mr. Peterson's security? And as an official representative of the California Department of Corrections, are you not concerned that giving such detailed information may compromise the security
All right, Vernell,
of San
your
Quentin?
response.
No, it does not. He is only in death row, and he is put in with a group of death row inmates that are all compatible with Mr. Peterson. And there will be no other inmates that will have access to him. Of the 637 that we have on death row in the state of California, none of them.
And now the public at large knows who those individuals are, and they know who is in contact with Mr. Peterson within the facility. So how does that not compromise
And there's almost
security?
65 of them that
But
are.
how does it compromise security? I don't even understand theoretically how it would. I mean, he's on death row.
Well, certainly by knowing who he's hanging out with at any given time within the facility, going to yard, the detailed information that's been provided, it makes it a lot easier for individuals on the outside who wish harm to Mr. Peterson to contact individuals on the inside who may have close contact
All right.
to him.
I got to wrap it up.
Concerned, it's a serious breach of security.
Yeah, all right.
Well, I differ with you. I don't find that to be a serious breach.
Right.
We
I
will
got to break it. We got some
everyone.
quick breaking news here that the shuttle deputy program manager has just announced that they're going to try and fix 2 pieces of a gap filler dangling from the space